Hi, I'm Anne Marie Johnson from Teacher to Teacher Help. In this video, I'd like to share with you one of my favorite tools that I include in my writing conferring toolkit. So I learned from Carl Anderson, studying his conferring videos years ago, that it's best to go into a conference prepared with a tool. And one of my favorite tools is using mentor text to show students what good writing looks like, and then invite them to try that in their own writing. So in this video, I'd like to show you how I tab up mentor texts to have them prepared for writing conferences for narrative writing. When I tab up mentor texts to have in my conferring toolkit, I'm tabbing them for the qualities of strong writing. And depending on whose work you follow, you might have different names for the qualities of strong writing. I like to use the terms that were introduced in this book by Lucy Calkins and her colleagues, the Writing Pathways book. And in this book, the qualities of strong writing are organized like this. They're organized around structure, development, and conventions. And they're subdivided into these subcategories here. So structure is organization, the leads and endings or introductions and conclusions, and transition words. Development is organized or subdivided into elaboration, which is just a fancy word for adding details. And then author's craft, things like word choice and voice. And then of course, conventions, which is spelling, grammar, capitalization, and punctuation. I like to use this analogy to help me remember the hierarchy of these skills. Structure is like building the structure of a house, digging the foundation and putting up the frame and the drywall. Development is once the house is built, getting inside and decorating the house, painting the walls. And conventions is like tidying up your house for company. You're having a housewarming party, inviting company over. And so in the same way, I like to think about writing instruction as having this hierarchy. So when I tab up a mentor text to use in my writing conferences, I tab them up with these skills in mind. So let me give you an example here of how I tab up some books for structure with narrative writing. So we know that narrative writing is organized around three parts: a beginning, a middle, and an end. And fictional narrative writing is not only organized, I should say just even fictional or personal narrative writing is organized also with a story arc, or that story mountain with the rising action. So let me show you how I've taken two books, and there's nothing special or fancy about these books. You can use any book that has this structure, but let me show you how I've tabbed these two books around two different kinds of story arcs, and invite you to start looking at the books that you read aloud to your students with these two structures in mind. And then I'll also show you how I've tabbed them up so that in a conference, I can pull these out to demonstrate to students. So the first one is this book, The Sandwich Swap. And I like this book because it has a very simple story arc, a very simple structure, where the author first introduces the characters and then quickly moves into the characters encountering a problem. The problem gets worse, the problem worsens again, the problem gets so bad, finally there's a turning point and a resolution. So quickly in this book, there are two characters who are best friends. One day there's a problem. They're sitting at lunch and one says, "Ooh, your food's yucky." "No, your food's yucky." The problem escalates all the way to the point where there's a food fight in the cafeteria. The problem gets really, really bad. Then one day there's a turning point. One character says, "Hey, want to try a bite of my sandwich?" "Hey, want to try a bite of my sandwich?" They do. They realize, "Gosh, your peanut butter and jelly, your hummus and pita, not so bad. I kind of like that." And then there's a resolution. So here's what I did with this book. I found those places in the book, and then I put a tab to show this is where the author introduces the characters. On this page, there's the problem. The problem worsens, the problem worsens. You'll see here's that food fight in the cafeteria. Okay. Then there's the turning point, and finally the resolution. Because I have this book already tabbed up, I can quickly, in the moment of a conference, help students structure their writing by showing them this story arc. Now, another common story arc in fictional writing, fictional narrative, is the character wants something. The character wants something and they try to get it and they fail. They try again and they fail. They try, often it's a third time. This time, in this book, you see it happens 5 times. The character tries and fails. In this case, the character wants to find a new friend. She tries to find a new friend and she fails. She tries. Finally, one day there's a turning point and then there's a resolution. Again, a story arc. So this has these books have 2 different story arcs, but they're both story arcs. Both of these books I have tabbed for structure, that structure of beginning, middle, end with the story arc or that story mountain. Now, when I go into a writing conference with my narrative writers who are writing, especially fictional narratives, I have a tool that instead of fixing up their writing, I can demonstrate off of a mentor author and then invite them to plan their own writing in the same way. So I invite you, as you're reading aloud to your students, pay attention to these story arcs. Is there a favorite book of yours that follows one of these 2 story arc patterns that you could tab and have in your Conferring toolkit? And then you'll be able to whip that out in a conference and teach your writer, not just their piece of writing.